Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan here for an Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And as we said, Adam, in our last podcast, OTAs are underway, and that's exciting for Philadelphia Eagles fans who are just looking for a little bit of news. So we gotta let it play out. Andrew DeCecco was there Wednesday at the practice. So that was the only open one so far for the media. And he's got his observations from OTAs up on the website, insidethebirds.com. We'll get our intel. But in this podcast, we're going to talk about a player who now ranks with Frank Gore in Eagles history as how great is this Eagle who actually never was an Eagle. We'll talk about that. And then we will finish up our look at the schedule, going inside the schedule, inside coaching changes, inside philosophies, inside trends for the second half of the Eagles schedule, which ironically, Adam, includes all of the division games.
Yeah.
We did the first 9 last week and didn't even get to the Cowboys, Giants, or Commanders.
Yeah, and the thing I don't understand is why in the world are they playing 3 NFC South teams in a row, weeks 2, 3, and 4? Just come on, that's just weird.
So there are some things I found out about the entire NFL schedule over the last few days that are mind-boggling and really disturbing. Like the schedule is really
disturbing.
Just on how, like, look, they used to put bad games on Thursday night, right? To give teams, like you didn't have to worry about good team. Now the money that everybody's paying, everybody wants a good game, right? It doesn't matter if you're Thursday night, Netflix. So they're putting really good, like the Jets are, as we already talked about, it's an obscene number of games in a small amount of time frame. How about the Steelers, who play every single division game after week 14? It's crazy. They don't play the Ravens, Bengals, or Ravens, Bengals, and who am I missing? Cleveland, right? Browns until like the last month of the season. It's something ridiculous like that. The Lions. Now, this is just a quirk. This has nothing to do with good or bad. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. The Lions play one game outdoors for the first 15 or 16.
Saw that. Yeah,
I know. A lot of this I saw on Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio covered it. Others I read or heard about. But man, like, and somebody you mentioned this. The Eagles are playing 3 straight NFC South opponents, right? I think a couple of teams are playing 3 or 4 straight road games. Like, what is the NFL doing? They just don't care.
Surprising.
They don't care.
Well, I know. Yeah, and then there's the Texans play 3 games in 10 days on I think it was Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
There were the Texans players were talking about it. D'Amico Ryan's head coach of the Texans was talking about it. Look, the schedule maker is what it is. But you're right, though, that the cool thing is now, because for years, ESPN had that Monday night schedule was terrible. I mean, it was like a joke. You never would get 2 teams playing together that were playing well at the same time. It's just, but now you're right that they've balanced this thing out. They do a phenomenal job, but there's some really odd scheduling quirks where, I mean, I just don't like these. I know they want the divisional rivals and a lot of divisional matchups late in the season, but could you give us one in like the first 4 or 5 weeks? Just,
yeah.
I don't get it.
It's odd. It really doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does make sense because the demand to put good teams on prime time has led to this, and so it's going to be rough. I feel for the Jets a little bit. I mean, they have a really brutal travel schedule for the first like 7 or 8 weeks of the season. But you know what? I guess that's how it goes when you're in bed with a lot of people giving you a lot of money to broadcast your game.
Well,
you have to do what you do.
Yep, and on that, listen, same thing. If Rodgers gets hurt again badly, they're getting their game flexed out because remember the flex schedule starts earlier. It's not like it used to be. They start pretty early with this thing, so they'll just flex them out. I mean, it's all about the and just hearing Mike North from the NFL talk about this the last couple of years on his media call after the schedule comes out. They because now they have so many things. They have so many networks and streaming networks. Netflix is in it now. Obviously, Amazon on Thursday nights. NBC, CBS, Fox, and when we have a little interesting nugget that Mike North gave us on the call, which I didn't realize about the Eagles-Dallas game, which we'll go over. Little interesting schedule note, about network change here. So it is what it is, but Eagles have a great schedule, though, by the way, comparatively to last season. They're avoiding a lot of the top teams. You can't look. I 2 years ago, I get it. All those teams calling for bye was ridiculous. The league never should have let that happen. That's a competitive disadvantage. That should not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of avoiding the Texans, the Niners, some
Holiday
of the
games. Right.
right. So the Lions, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
some of the elite teams, they're the Chiefs, by the way, they're not playing them this season. And the Bills, they're not playing them. The Dolphins, they're not playing them. Look, who could score a lot of points. So, yeah, they do play the Ravens, but overall, the Eagles have a nice schedule. A couple scheduling quirks, as you talked about, but overall, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, I think for them not playing on the holidays and not having to travel here, especially in the second half of the schedule, it's not. I don't think travel is as big of a deal as some people think it is. Like some players say, okay, so we don't get on a plane. That's not as big of an advantage as you think. Others will say it is. It's kind of like a mixed bag, but it is a good schedule to make sure you're not overworked and stressed over the second half. I agree with
One
that.
more nugget I want to give you on what you just said, because Joe Banner told me this, and this ended this ever happening in the NFL again. So it was the infamous Vince Young game where he
Mm-hmm.
started against Seattle on a Thursday night.
Yep.
I'd have to go back and look. I think they played the Cardinals Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, whoever they played at home, and then on a short week they had to fly to Seattle.
Yeah.
So the league got an earful from the Eagles. That never happened. Not only did not happen to the Eagles, it never happened to another team. You can't ask a West Coast team to change 3 time zones on a short week. It's absurd. Why would you? That's just dumb.
Yeah.
But the league learned their lesson, and look, you learn as you're going through this what works and what doesn't work, and you have to respond to teams. You want to be fair to everybody.
There you go. All right. We are going to let you know that on our Patreon platform, we've got the live stream, Ask ITB live stream. We'll be back next Wednesday. I know a lot of people have questions about OTAs, and we'll have a lot of early intel for our Patreon members on that. Adam's got you've been doing the Discord chat. We did it again Wednesday night, which is always great. And off we go. So again, patreon.com/inside the birds to get in on all the great intel, all the extra podcasts, the bonus content, the interviews, the contracts, the transcripts that we're putting up. I mean, we're just trying to do more and more for our Patreon members. So again, patreon.com/inside the birds. All right. So we had an interesting, this is becoming like, I don't want to say an annual tradition, but there's been like 3 or 4 players now who have retired after the Eagles acquired them in the offseason. I'm not even making a Frank Gore joke. I mean, there was the Marquise Goodwin thing. There was the Jatavis Brown.
Oh, that's it. Jatavis Brown? Was it?
Yeah, from the Chargers, the linebacker.
Yep.
2 or 3 years ago, he retired. And now DeVante Parker, a veteran wide receiver who was signed to be, if he was going to make the team, which I think he might have, especially since they targeted him.
They were counting on him.
Yeah, they were counting on him
to
be the top outside wide receiver. Well, he retires. He says he's going to spend some time with the family. What I find interesting about this, Adam, and I know you talked about it with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN on Football at 4, which we do every day, and it's up on our YouTube channel, is the timing of it. There's usually a time period where guys decide they're going to retire that either is their decision or helps the team. And like a Jason Kelsey, I'm going to take a couple of weeks or draft sometimes. But this one sort of was out of nowhere on the eve of OTA.
Yeah, it's weird. The timing, it's him retiring. I'm not surprised, only because I know from talking to some pro personnel people around the league, he clearly was like maybe had 1 year left in him. Like his legs were down. He doesn't have the explosion he used to have. The contested catches and making great plays downfield gone. Didn't have much left, but he's got size. Became sort of more of a possession receiver. Anyway, but the timing is so bizarre because it's very rare that you would retire when you don't have to be there. Remember, these OTAs are not mandatory; they're voluntary. You don't have to go. He had a bargain basement contract because the Dolphins, the Patriots owe him a couple million, and then the Eagles would pay the rest. The Eagles only owed him 1.2 million, which wasn't guaranteed anyway. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. Typically, players let their teammates know, like Kelsey did. A lot of his teammates knew he was retiring well before it came out. They knew during the season this was going to be most likely it, unless he changed his mind, and then he told them obviously. After, or maybe it was before the game or whatever it was, halftime of whenever after the game against Tampa, that he's planning on doing this. But typically players get cold feet before training camp starts, right before they report. They go, you know what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm done. Which you can understand. Look, when you get to a certain age, you don't want to go through it anymore. Although training camps, comparatively to when you and I first started covering the league, are so much easier now.
Yes.
You know, they don't do
Yeah.
2 days. You get one a day. They're not even a special teams practice anymore in the afternoon, like when we first started doing it. But bottom line is, Parker said he's not going to play. They signed him to be the backup for AJ Brown. Not that this is a good thing to happen, but now they could take a look at Johnny Wilson more than they probably would have. Austin Watkins, who they gave a decent guarantee to, Shaquan Davis, who's tall, is over 6'4". Jacob Harris is a hybrid player. They plan to play him, as you understand, at receiver. So now that these guys will get even more looks because they got to figure this out. I know Paris Campbell is more of a Z receiver, the movement outside receiver, or a slot. So they need to figure this out. And Joe Ngata, who was a star at training camp last season, but doesn't run particularly well. So look, they don't have to do anything right now. And I can tell you, folks, the worst position on offense and free agency right now is outside receiver. It is so bad. They're like at 50 slot receivers. First time in years, the Eagles don't need any slot receivers. They don't need any more. They have too many of them.
Well,
Last year, they didn't have any.
They could use a good established one, but to your point, even the ones
Right.
on the free agent market
Right.
are not that much different than what they've got.
Although Hunter Renfrow is great, but again, they're not going there because they've got Covey, Nia Smith. They really want and Paris Campbell. So it would make it would take away from they want these guys to compete. You know, if you bring in Hunter Renfrow, there's no competition. He is the slot receiver. There's no debate who the slot receiver would be.
Right.
So these guys are going to compete, and we'll see what happens. But they're really thin at outside receiver. I mean, Campbell with his injury history, and he got benched last season with the Giants, as we noted after he signed here. Where we got is he got benched, and you know he is the guy right now. He is the third receiver. Like he's got to stay healthy. But just to give you an idea, who's available? Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, who's a possession receiver who was once one of the top 3 receivers in the NFL. A lot of injuries. He hasn't been healthy in years. You know, he's on the downside of his career. Mecole Hardman, who could. I don't know that he runs as well as he used to, but the guy's played a lot of football. Eagles well aware of him, but you know,
he's got inside outside versatility, right? I mean,
right,
sort of a tweener there, yeah.
But he's really outside. When he's right, he's a speed guy, but I don't know that he runs as well as he used to. But everyone else is a slot receiver. Byron Pringle's a returner. Made some coin years ago, but he's more of a 4. Richie James, who told me 2 years ago was either going to be the Giants or the Eagles. He signed with the Giants. So that's it, man. That's Robbie Anderson Chosen is out there, who's clearly at the end of the line, who could run a little bit. That's it. Jakeem Grant is only a slot and a returner, and you know he worked out for them, and they didn't sign him at their rookie camp. So, I'm sorry, my bad. Old friend Marquise Goodwin, another guy I think you were talking about, who was once an Eagle, but he never played for them.
Yeah. So the Eagles have been bitten by the retirement bug with Marquise Goodwin, Jatavis Brown, and don't forget Miles Jack retired about a week into his Eagles tenure last summer.
And he came back.
And then he came back.
What the hell?
I don't. I think he probably saw the writing on the wall and said Cunningham's beating me out, so I'm just going to re-retire and then maybe come back for somebody else.
Didn't he say something weird? Didn't he say he was? What did he want to do?
Wasn't he at home doing like electrician type work?
Yeah, that was it. He said he wanted to do that. I'm like, this guy's got millions. What? Maybe it's a hobby. I don't know. But that was it. You got it. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I thought it was kind of funny. But anyway, so it's good.
Yeah. So by the way, is Russell Gage also a free agent? I think he missed all last year, but he's out there, and he's a guy who played slot for Atlanta. I mean, he can play a little bit. What I imagine would happen now, Adam, is the Eagles will look at this landscape and agree with you and say, you know, if we brought in a Renfrow, then we don't get, you know, opportunities to look at Nia Smith because Renfrow would have to be the slot. He wants
Nia Smith. Yeah,
Nia Smith. Yeah. So what I imagine the Eagles will do is they'll get through OTAs, see what they got, and then probably go into camp, see what they got, and much like they did at linebacker, if they really feel that either at slot or backup outside that they're not seeing what they want, then maybe they make a move on Hardman, Russ Gage, if he's out there, or one of those names you mentioned. I can't see them making the move right now. Everybody's asking, what are the Eagles going to do? What are the Eagles going to do? I think they're going to evaluate. There's no need to rush into making a move. You want to evaluate the guys that you brought in who have been with you since you brought them in on futures deals or you had them last year on the practice squad. You want to give them every opportunity because none of the guys in free agency, they're not going anywhere. There's no race to sign. These guys are all at the same level. But as you get through maybe a week of training camp, I don't know, or going into training camp, you might see a transaction here or there. But I don't see them rushing on this.
Yeah, it's highly, but just to clarify, it's highly unlikely to go into the season without another veteran. They just can't. I mean, they're at a, and I totally agree. They don't need to do anything right now. Again, the season doesn't start till September. We've learned this the interesting way over the years when they made some really good transactions late in the spring, early summer, or sometimes in training camp. The Ronald Darby trade, the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade, right at the hugging up to the season, which sometimes it looks bad. Howie finds a way to do it. So,
Absolutely.
but with Campbell's injury history, you just cannot depend on him. And man, they did not want him on the field with the Giants last season. It was kind of weird, but he's got a wonderful opportunity here. That very low guarantee is. We put all the contracts out months ago. Just to remind you that the guarantee is less than $1 million on his contract. So, I mean, right now he's absolutely going to be on the team. Now, good point on Russell Gage. The Bucs declined to bring him back. He's had a severe knee injury a couple years ago. That's a good one. He's got inside and outside versatility. But boy, it'd be nice to get some size at receiver behind AJ Brown. But you know what? Look, but here's another thing. What if Johnny Wilson balls out? What if he has this great training camp? He's got a very talented kid, dropped to the 6th round for a variety of reasons, but he's got ability to make them think. And also Watkins is a guy that they gave a nice guarantee to. He's a guy that projects to be a 4 or 5. But our whole point of this, and we'll move on, is, and we've said this now for 7 years, coaches have always told us this: what's our answer if our starter gets hurt? Yes, no one's going to be as good as AJ Brown. My mom knows that. Your mom knows that. Everybody knows this. But what happens? Are you willing to go down to Johnny Wilson or Austin Watkins? That's your answer. No, of course not. But if these guys ball out, make it interesting. Make the decision tough. But again, we're only in May. They got the OTAs now, then they got the mandatory camp. Let's see what happens.
There you go. There's also, by the way, the cut down date and receivers. There's always a couple of receivers that don't make their teams that have had some good experience. In fact, some of the teams that are on the Eagles' back end of the schedule that we're going to talk about here, interestingly, have a decent number of receivers where you might see a case where one of them is not going to make the team. So we'll get into that in a second. Let's go now inside the schedule here in the second half and finish up this 2-part series. Adam, before we do that, let's pause and hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, we did the first 9 weeks in the last pod, and like I said, not one single of the first 9 opponents for the Eagles was a NFC East opponent. All 6 games, NFC East games, will be played in the second half of the season. So what we'll do is we'll start with Week 10. Dallas,
hang on. I think the Giants are within the first 9 weeks. I'm reasonably sure. I'll double check. I'm pretty sure we talked.
I'm sorry. Did we
talk about the Giants?
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, we did. I'm sorry. That's so 5 of the 6 games. So we're not going to do the Giants here because we already did that. But we will start Week 10 at Dallas is where the Eagles will be. But we're not going to obviously talk about Dallas again. We're just going to go through Dallas and then Washington before we go on to the other non-division teams. So Dallas is a little bit different in that they've got a lot different, I think, defensively.
Yep.
They had some losses there, and they've got a new defensive play caller. Although I would say this one's a good defensive play caller. So I don't know that they lost anything as far as wisdom, insight, ingenuity, the type of play caller that you would want. Mike Zimmer is now the defensive coordinator, Adam, for the Cowboys. And what's really interesting is that Mike McCarthy enters the last year of his deal, and he's sort of a lame duck head coach right now.
They love Mike Zimmer. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because Mike Zimmer is so beloved by that organization.
Yeah.
And he was there the first time around with Bill Parcells many, many years ago. So this is fascinating. I mean, because I'm telling you, Zim, the calls will be there because the fans cannot believe that they brought back McCarthy. As you mentioned, lame duck coach. The offense is great. That's not the problem. I mean, him and Brian Schottenheimer has done a great job. but it's just the choking, the awful, embarrassing loss to the Packers. The Packers absolutely depants them
They did.
in Dallas. It was not even competitive. They just got smoked. Now you bring in Zimmer, who runs an old school 4-3. It's not hard to figure out what's coming here. Doesn't, as I understand it, doesn't do the double A gap stuff as much as he used to. Well, again, he hasn't been with the team in the last couple of years because he got canned from the Vikings. But he's got his old friend Paul Gunther is going to help him as a senior defensive assistant. And as you mentioned, the difference is obviously Dan Quinn ran a hybrid scheme. Here's the thing, though. Micah Parsons is going to play with his hand down because Zim doesn't really do a joker role like Parsons did under DQ. So that's going to change. Eric Kendricks, Michael Kendricks' younger brother, was their only free agent signing because they had such a cap issue. How do you have a cap issue in today's NFL? It's a joke.
Only the Cowboys. If there's going to be a team that has a cap issue, it would be the Cowboys.
It's exactly. It's so embarrassing that this happens, but it happened. That Dak Prescott's got a cap number over $60 million. It's just they somehow did not get this done in the offseason, and they're at a standstill. They've got a problem here. Well, I'm sorry, they lowered his cap number. I'm sorry, it's $55.45 million. I don't want to get it wrong, but they did a very small restructure. But anyway, just to clean up their cap a little bit. But overall, so offensively now it's Guyton, their rookie left tackle out of Oklahoma, will be their left tackle, replaces Tyron Smith, and they did this because they wanted Tyler Smith to stay inside. This was the big thing for them. And Tyler Smith is a guy no one you and I talked to for that draft 2 years ago thought he could play guard. In fact, he didn't look good guard. They weren't sure what he could be because he didn't have a good training camp. And then once he got thrown in there left tackle when Tyron Smith was out, he looked great. Moved to guard last season. Great. What a story. Out of Tulsa, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also going to have a new center. Cooper Beebe should be one of being their center. Terrence Steele had the ACL injury 2 years ago. Fought through it last season. He's the right tackle. Zach Martin's back. Old wily veteran right guard. They'll be fine there.
Mm-hmm.
But look, they cut Michael Gallup, who's now with the Raiders. Jalen Tolbert, who did nothing as a rookie, is their third receiver. So that their depth is a little bit light there. But the big story here is they bring back Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott, believe it or not, is going to be their starting running back. You gotta be kidding me. Like he showed he could still play, but he's not even close to what he once was.
Yeah. You know what though? But they're so much more now of a conventional West Coast offense under McCarthy that I don't want to say it doesn't matter who's running the ball. They
throw it a lot. Yeah,
they're going to throw it a lot. It's going to be a lot of that timing and rhythm stuff. And listen, Dak really improved last year as if it's there, throw it. If not, just take off, get yourself the fire. You start to see, I don't want to call it the explosion, but the quickness back in his game and the ability to stretch. Not stretch the field, but sort of extend the chains, right? Just by running and picking up the first down. He was able to get to some second and third reads. I think in the second year of this, he'll probably be all right, because they still have really good weapons with CeeDee Lamb.
Oh yeah.
Cooks will be back. I'm trying to think. They didn't draft. They drafted the kid Ryan Flournoy out of like Missouri State.
Yeah, sleeper,
he's
but
not. Yeah, he's a sleeper.
Tolbert's
a guy that I think can make some development in this offense.
Is that the Senior Bowl out of South Alabama?
Yeah,
and he just wasn't ready as a rookie. Now they like him a lot. He came on last season. He's their 3. But Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin, who's in his 3rd year, is terrific.
Yeah,
where I think they reached a little bit is Luke Schoonmaker. Taking a wide tight end in the second round is crazy. Ferguson is their move guy, who's really good. But yeah, I know they're going to spread. They'll be more 11 personnel, and they're pretty aggressive. Brian Schottenheimer's their big reason why he got McCarthy to get out of his shell and try to be more aggressive. Schotty believes in, as I understand, analytics and throwing early, and they do that. But but at this point, for Zeke to be your starter, I mean, your number 2 would be great. So that's that. And you defensively, they got everybody back pretty much. Jordan Lewis is back. Diggs is back from his ACL injury, but they say, hey, by the way, who knows if he's going to be the same? They're good at safety. They'll be a good team, but guess what, folks? Haven't had that repeat winner in 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. You know what's interesting? I feel like they're a lot like the Eagles, right? I mean, they've got a head coach who you could say Nick Sirianni might be looking over his shoulder at the veteran defensive coordinator Fangio or the new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. I mean, I would tend to think it would be Kellen as long as the offense is good.
Yeah.
If the team were to get off to a slip. So McCarthy in the same situation. Plus, they're going to be starting 2 new guys in the offensive line. You mentioned it. Left tackle Tyler Guyton, both rookies, right? And center, most likely Cooper Beebe. Now, they've done a really good job, like the Eagles, of developing young offensive linemen throughout the year. So you give them the benefit of the doubt there, and I agree. I think this will be a really good offense. I think they're gonna light it up most weeks. And as long as Dak is, again, if he continues in year 2 of that McCarthy traditional West Coast offense, then they should be a team that's pretty competitive offensively.
Yeah, and one thing, the cool thing now after the Eagles draft, because now last year the Eagles just could not, as the season went along, match up a corner. Well, now they can.
Right.
And we can't now. The question obviously for them is, can they get a pass rush? Because with Reddick's trade, Bryce Huff has never been a full-time starter. Sweat dropped off, as everybody knows. We haven't seen Nolan Smith barely played. BG did well in his limited role, and Jalex Hunt is a total project. So there are questions. But the cool thing with Gardner Johnson in there, now they can compete. DeJean, they've got depth. They got competition. They got plenty of nickels. They went from struggling at nickel, going through everybody. Now they got 5 of them. So that one, unless they suffer like 5 injuries, the Eagles are going to be able to compete now on the back end in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question is, are they good enough at that nickel and interior? Or can they stop CeeDee Lamb this year? I mean, when I say stop, he's going to get his yards. He's going to get his yards, but he can't be just absolutely obliterating them like he has done over the last few games. Now, on defense, you mentioned how Zimmer has not been a double-A gap guy. You know, he sort of was considered the
does, but not as much.
Right, but I do wonder. You look at Dallas's offseason strategy, right? They drafted Marshawn Nealon, an edge rusher, in the 2nd round. They've got Sam Williams, who they've probably been looking to increase the role as an edge rusher. Do you think maybe with Lawrence, Nealon, and Williams able to attack from the edges, if he says, you know what, like I did with Anthony Barr, maybe I will put Parsons in certain nickel looks as a linebacker and just have him rush up the middle, you know, have him go the A gaps, because that would be, to me, that's a great mismatch to use him. Every once in a while, you line up as a linebacker and just have him blitz through the A gaps.
Well, Dan Quinn, like, it took him a little time to figure out what to do with Parsons, but once he became a joker, it was just ridiculous. I mean, he give Quinn credit. That's great coaching. Now, where they're not strong is up the middle. Mozzie Smith, their first round, did nothing. He wasn't ready, and Osa Odigizua is okay, and they got Chauncey Golson, who's on the final year of his deal, but they're not good up the middle. They've not been good up the middle for years. And Eric Kendricks is a smaller middle linebacker. Obviously, Zim knows him. He coached him with the Vikings, but that's the one area, and we know the Eagles going to be a run at it this year. They're not going to be a running team, but when they run it, they got Barkley.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking already. You're trying to run duo on the Cowboys all day long, right? Get your interior offensive line, get them up there in the middle, and crash Saquon Barkley up the middle and see if he can't break a few big ones. Yep. Obviously, the Cowboys will get Trevon Diggs back from the ACL. We'll see how he responds to that. If he's even, close to being himself, and Deron Bland on the other side was all pro last year. Beatable, a little bit overrated because he's kind of a squatter who gets the interceptions, but hey, he's still pretty good. So that's a good secondary with Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker there. This is a good team. I think you framed it best. The biggest thing the Cowboys are battling, along with the Eagles, right, is history and the ghosts of nobody being able to repeat in this division in 20 years. So I'm with you on that. But they certainly are as well equipped as any team to do it. They just have to do it.
Well, that playoff loss was so embarrassing. I'm just shocked that they brought back McCarthy. I mean, look, he's had plenty of time. I know they've been good under him. He's a good coach. He won a Super Bowl, but to choke like they did is just we went through this in Philly, and obviously the Jaguars did with Doug Peterson, at a terrible choke. But the Packers that was hard to understand. But hey, look, and by the way, they're really well coached special teams by John Fossil. The late Jim Fossil's son is terrific. So I think both teams are pretty even.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's those. And by the way, one couple schedule notes before we go here. That's Week 10. They're at Dallas on Sunday at 4:25. As Mike North from the NFL noted, for the first time in over 30 years, this game will be on CBS, not Fox.
How about that?
Which is it's so weird for those of us who are a little bit over 40 or 50. We grew up on CBS. But before Fox. CBS was NFC, NBC was the AFC, and man, things changed when Fox took over. But they don't they don't differentiate from the conferences very much anymore. So as North was talking about, and then the second time, which is in week 17, where the Eagles are at home, that's a Fox game at 4:25. And Fox will never, because they get one game they could block. They're not. They'll. I don't care what the NFL. They're not giving that game up. Eagles, Cowboys, which I'm sure it's going to mean something in week 17. That game ain't moving. It's going to be 4:25.
No doubt about it. All right, all that talk about Dan Quinn was, and some of those Cowboys were good last year. It segues nicely into our the Eagles' Week 11 opponent, which is also their Week 16 opponent, and it is the Washington Commanders. They have a new GM, they have a new head coach, they have a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, all new coordinators, and a new quarterback. So that's a lot of newness.
Wow, yeah. So yeah, and by the way, they have a new owner in Josh Harris.
A new owner. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, the Sixers owner, and don't they own the Devils? Do they own the Devils? That group?
He owns the Devils, the Sixers. Yeah, he probably owns a soccer team too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And he grew up in DC. So yeah, so this game, the first game in week 11 is on a Thursday night. That's on Amazon Prime. And the second game in week 16 is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, the Eagles actually have a 1 p.m. Eastern game. That's at Washington. So they are going to be super heavy 11 personnel, some 10 under Cliff Kingsbury, who at one point it seemed like he was going to be the Eagles OC, but didn't work out for a variety of reasons. And he is now the OC there. And he didn't use tight ends at all the first couple of years. Then once they got Zach Ertz, they started using it. And Zach, of course, knows this offense. He played for Cliff in Arizona, so he's there. And Ben Sinnott was there from Kansas State. You and I saw at the Senior Bowl. Had a great Senior Bowl week. Was a second-round pick. At running back, Robinson will start. Eckler will be his backup. Also see time in passing situations. Eckler at this point is just a backup running back. He lost a lot of steam at 28. Here's the problem with the receiver group. They have no depth at all, which surprises me with Kingsbury being their offense coordinator. McLaurin, Dotson, we know are the receivers, their starters. Luke McCaffrey, who I know some people in the NFL, or some teams thought was overdrafted.
Yeah, third round was interesting to me.
Yeah, out of Rice, Senior Bowl guy. Olamide Zaccheaus was brought in there, former Eagle. De'Ami Brown was a final year of his deal. So it's okay depth, not great. I thought they'd bring more. I thought they'd bring him another veteran. Damiere Byrd, who won't go away, who could run, who's been around. He must have been on 7 or 8 teams.
Him and Crowder. Him and Crowder. Every year they're on a team. Yeah.
Damiere Byrd did play for Cliff, as I see now. Gosh, 8 teams. Wow, holy smokes. Good for him at 31, not giving up. But look, you're going to see, as I said, some 10 personnel, which means 4 wide, no tight end and 1 running back. Jaden Daniels, as you mentioned, is recorded. Marcus Mariota is the backup. When they go 12 personnel, it's Ertz and Sinnott. And I know they really like Amani Rogers, who was a tight end out of Ohio University who tore his ACL a couple years ago. And unfortunately, he was really coming on. And Cole Turner, who's a move tight end, who is out of Nevada, who I saw at the Senior Bowl a couple years ago. Before we move to defense, the big issue is the offensive line. Nick Allegretti, another ex-Chief, he'll play guard for them. Biadasz comes over from Dallas to be their center. I'm told they're going to keep Cosme at guard. Left tackle, I had heard they want to move Brandon Coleman inside. We'll see if they do that. But they don't know who their left tackle is at this point. It's better. Their offensive line's better than it used to be, but it's still not great. With this Eagles front, they should be able to handle this. But remember, the Washington's going to spread you out. So and the Eagles will not blitz. Really, the Eagles will be a bottom 5 blitz team under Fangio. He just doesn't do it. He believes in the John D. Flippo told us on Patreon last fall. Flip said that when you play them, he wants to make you bleed, wants to make you impatient, and a lot of late disguise, a lot of late movement, and he wants the quarterback to hold the ball, and your front gets there, and your edge rushers get there, and we'll see what happens, but. Kingsbury's a guy that teams understand they know what's coming. They know it's the same offense around in college and at Texas Tech. So we'll see what happens. But it's, as you said, to start this, it's completely different from what they faced here with Washington.
So I've been thinking about this offensive line ever since our last podcast and how I would characterize it. If the Washington offense for the last few years, it was an F. If you were grading it, you would give it an F on personnel, talent, ability, F, right? I look at this offensive line now and I'm like, it's a D.
No, better. Yeah,
it's
C minus,
better,
C
but it's
minus.
not great. But here's the thing, Adam, because this is all about how we talk about the matchups against the Eagles. With an F offensive line last year, the Commanders were able to score over 30 points twice
Well,
against the
Eric
Eagles.
Bieniemy, what didn't I have to look it up? But Bieniemy was so crazy pass happy. He didn't
Yeah,
care. He was like, I'm
right,
throwing the
right.
football.
He was hitting the Eagles where it hurts. He's like, I'm not even going to give my offensive line a chance. They don't have to run. I'm just going to throw the ball, quick against this bad Eagles secondary. Now you got a new quarterback who theoretically should be more talented than Sam Howell. We'll see. And you've got some pretty good weapons in McLaurin and Dotson, and maybe Luke McCaffrey becomes a really nice fit for what Kingsbury wants to do. Zach Ertz there at tight end to be there with Ben Sinnott. So they've got some pretty good weapons, and with Kingsbury's air it out, maybe they've got some good matchup problems for the Eagles. We'll see. The offensive line though, it's better. It's just not good at all. But again, they scored a lot of points with a bad offensive line against the Eagles. So that's an area
That was
really got to
crazy.
clean up.
That
Yeah.
game in Philly, I got to give Sam Howell credit. He got the bleep knocked out of him, and he was a gunslinger. To me, why would they not want to keep him over Mariota? But see, here's why. There's only one reason, and I don't agree with it, but it's just the way it is. Kingsbury wants a mobile quarterback. He wants a guy who can run, and we know Mariota can run. Jeff Driscoll, by the way, the only reason why he's in the NFL is he can run.
The old Florida quarterback.
He all he does is run. Driscoll's had a Louisiana Tech. He was a transfer. I think you're right. I think he actually went to another school before that.
Yeah.
But he's been on to like 8 teams. He's another guy. All he could do is he's just a scrambler. He just doesn't. To me, but how's a better quarterback than Mariota at this point? I don't agree with. I don't know, but this is what he wants. He wants a guy who can move. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's any balance to the Cliff Kingsbury offense.
All right. So on defense, I really liked their draft. If you just talk about the talent, Adam, I like Jerzon Newton. They got him in the second round. He's a guy I watched him play at Illinois. He was disruptive. We thought he could be a first rounder. A lot of teams thought he'd be a first rounder. So good get for them. The only weird thing is that they've already got Jonathan Allen. They've already got Deron Payne. They have really good interior defensive linemen. I'm sure they'll be able to rotate and get Jerzon Newton on the field there, but it's weird because they really don't have much from edge rushing. Yeah, they signed Dorrance Armstrong from the Cowboys because DQ system, and Cleveland Farrell is just a guy, and Dante Fowler is kind of made the rounds as a journeyman. So they're gonna have to manufacture pressure. So which is a little different than DQ had in Dallas, where he's like, I'm just gonna line up Micah wherever I want, and then he'll just beat somebody. He's gonna have to figure out a way to scheme some pressure here.
Well, what they're going to do is he ran a 4.25, so they're going to run that. You're right, man. They strung the middle with Payne, Allen, Fedarian Mathis, and Newton.
Yeah.
They've completely revamped their linebacker. Frankie Louisville, my guy, what a great story he's been. Jamin Davis won't start. They're only going to play 2 linebackers. It'll be Bobby Wagner, who could still play. Future Hall of Famer, no question about it. Wagner and Louisville, so they're better, way better at off the ball linebacker, way better. Now safety is not great. Jeremy Chin comes in as an inconsistent player, kind of peaked as a rookie. They're not great at corner. They'll be better. Sandstrel from Michigan's a pretty talented guy.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's better than they had. And St. Just has been up and down. And Emmanuel Forbes, see, here's the thing with Forbes. Yeah, he was a first rounder, but remember, he was not drafted by this regime.
Yep.
So who knows if he'll start. And Mike Davis is a journeyman corner, been around a long time, played much better ball early in his career with the Chargers. So they're okay. They're interesting, as you said, with DQ calling it. He'll call the defense. Joe Witt Jr. comes over with him from Dallas. Larry Izzo, one of the better special teams coaches in the league. They'll be better coached. This will be, and Dante Fowler, as you mentioned, he also played for DQ. This is, to me, is a team that will be better. The roster's better, but the Eagles are clearly better than this team. But as you said, you watch these divisional games. I've learned my lesson going back 25 years. So many times when I pick the Eagles to blow out a divisional opponent, everyone tells me, dude, don't say that. You never, it's weird, this division. And then the other team, as you were alluding to, somehow, who's not even close to talent as the Eagles, the Eagles would play down to the competition is the term. That does happen.
Yeah. I've always thought Washington has stockpiled good defensive players, and they continue to do that. You mentioned Wagner, Louvu, drafting Newton, drafting center still, but they've never been able, at least under Jack Del Rio, to put it together and really be a dominant defense. Maybe now with Dan Quinn, they will be able to. I think you mentioned this. If Manuel Forbes can shake off a rocky rookie year and claim one of the outside starting spots, that would enable them to push Mike Sanders still to a nickel. I mean, I think he's going to be their nickel anyway, but I think it would give
Quan
them.
Martin, actually, Quan Martin would be their nickel.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if he starts. I mean, Sanders still is an ideal nickel. I mean, I think he's more suited for nickel than outside.
When Greg said,
way.
Greg said that he thought, I think Cosell said he might have to play safety.
Sanders. Okay, safety. I mean, at this point, you're talking interior defender anyway. That's where my point was on Sanders. Still, I think he's okay. Better used at. So that could be a good secondary if Forbes makes that jump. But that's an if, and we'll see. They have talent, but they obviously have to get the coaching and put it together. But yeah, it's always an interesting game when these two teams play. It's always fascinating.
Yep.
So that's Washington. Again, weeks 11 and week 16. It'll be very interesting to see if that week 16, if Washington is improved enough so that week 16 game is significant for both the Eagles and Washington. Like if Washington's chasing a 7 or 8 seed there at the end, or who knows? I mean, my gosh, the Eagles could be chasing something. Who knows at that point? All right. So those are the two division teams we were going to get into in this episode, Washington, Dallas. We'll get into the non-division schedule in a second. First, we've been telling you how exciting the NBA playoffs have been, right? Even with the Sixers out of it. And boy, was that a crazy series between the Knicks and Pacers. Well, now it's Pacers and Celtics. So it kind of ruined my idea to go on the Game Time app and get yourself a ticket to Madison Square Garden to root against the Knicks versus Celtics, because now it's Pacers Celtics, Adam. But this is the time where people make a lot of trips. It's spring, get into the summer. I say, hey, go take a trip to Boston. Go take a trip to Boston and go to the game if you're a Sixers fan just to root against the Celtics. Heckle them, bash them, wear a Pacers jersey just to be like you're a wolf in sheep's clothes, right? and do it. And you can get a ticket on Game Time. The Game Time app. You can also go to gametime.co if you're a person who doesn't like apps and you want to go on a website and be excited. Go boo the Celtics if you're a Sixers fan. And that makes getting playoff tickets faster and easier. And the prices on Game Time app, they go down the closer you get to tip off, not up. All right. With killer last minute deals, all in prices and views from your seat. You get the lowest price guarantee. Game Time has taken the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So mark it on your calendar. I'm going to Boston. I'm going to go take a trip, get some good pizza, do some old historic sightseeing, and then go boo the Celtics at the Boston Garden. They still call it the Boston Garden, or is it TD Garden? Whatever they call it.
TD Garden, yeah.
I call it the Garden. Go to the Garden there in Boston and go boo them. If not, you can use the Game Time app to go get our game to see the red hot Philadelphia Phillies. Maybe Ranger Suarez is pitching that night as he chases a Cy Young Award. Wouldn't that be crazy if Ranger Suarez wins the Cy Young Award? I mean, wouldn't it be crazy?
I've been on, this guy is, he's really unique, man. And these batters have no idea what to do with him. It's really cool.
No, they don't. So I was actually looking for tickets on the Game Time app the other day, Phillies tickets. It's so easy. It is literally, you're like 2 taps away. They show you the view from the seat. You get the great deals. You don't have, there's no guesswork there. And I didn't buy anything, but I'm sort of planning for when my softball season kind of recedes a little bit and I have some free time. So I'm not worried about last minute tickets because, again, best prices last minute, flash deals, zone deals, anything. Lowest price guarantee. There's the event cancellation protection and job loss protection. I don't know that any other ticketing app gives you that, but Game Time. All right. So save up to 60% off by buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is you want to see. Get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And remember, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or any other tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, we continue with the Eagles schedule, taking you inside like nobody else can. Scheme changes, trends, coaching philosophies, coaching changes. Week 12 a game that I have circled on the calendar. I think I'm on Rams Island. I feel like I'm the only one who looks at them and doesn't just go, okay. I think the Rams are pretty good when Matthew Stafford is healthy. The Rams are tough. I know the Eagles beat them last year, but they got better as the year went on. You saw Cooper Kupp come back, Puka Nacua. That's a pretty good one too. Maybe not AJ Brown, Devontae Smith good, but not too much worse. Tight end, not as flashy as Dallas Goedert, but Adam, big offensive line improvements, and Blake Corum is a guy who's going to fit what they want to do really well because he is a great inside runner, and they are now an inside zone team. They power it up the middle, run a lot of duo, not the wide zone team they used to be. So good marriage of personnel and scheme there. And I just don't put anything past Sean McVay. I think he's an excellent coach.
I mean, on your point you just made, he somehow made Demarcus Robinson a starting receiver. Demarcus Robinson was winning fantasy leagues for people last year. He was so good.
Yep.
He was so, because he's always been a really good special teams player. They took him off specials because he just showed up, and they brought him back, gave him a couple million. So yeah, and he's so smart, Sean McVay. You know, they don't really have a true outside receiver. They reduce their receivers. They, like, if you see personnel sheets, it'll say like, okay, Nacua is technically outside here, but he's really reduced. Sure. They move him closer to, they move him inside, closer to the
like the Dolphins do.
And they get more space. Cooper Kupp has been banged up. You know, you're always worried about him if you're the Rams because he's well into his 30s now. Has been on IR a bunch over the last 3 or 4 years. But yeah, it's Kyron Williams who was, I'll tell you what, he's shocked a lot of people in the NFL. He was great, but give him credit with Blake Corum. But Corum will be their long-term answer at running back. They're heavy 11 personnel. They're gonna find out what your weakness is. And the Eagles played him in Week 5 last year in LA at SoFi. They're running. They're going to keep their 34 front. No Aaron Donald. If we go to defense, Don Shula's grandson Chris Shula, who's been on their staff. He's the first time calling their defense. Takes over from Raheem Morris as the Falcons head coach. So they're going to keep the same defense, but obviously Chris Shula's never called a defense, so this is going to be different from him. And not going to have Aaron Donald. They got Brandon Fisk. And Kobe Turner was a great story. Well, he was phenomenal as a rookie. They brought in Jared Verse, who's going to be an edge rusher with Byron Young on the other side. Verse is a rookie. He's more of a power player, so we'll see how this works out for him. They brought Demarius Williams back, who'll start at outside corner, who could also play inside. Tre'Davious White is coming off another major injury. They're not great at corner. If I'm the Eagles, and we know this is coming because this is what Kellen Moore does, I spread them out. That's all. I mean, I'm coming out heavy throwing. I'm going against that secondary. And the other thing is, you know, we'll see how good they are at linebacker. They're not great. They overachieved. Raheem Morris did a phenomenal job. They're not very talented on defense. Cam Curl now comes over as one of their starting safeties. In fact, they're the only NFL team that's two Camerons, Cameron Curl and Cam Kitchens, two Camerons at playing safety. But Quentin Lake is Carnell Lake's son, who's could play safety or nickel. They've been really well coached, but again, Raheem Morris is not there, so I can't see how their defense is going to be just as good.
Yeah, is that an official stat, by the way? The only team with two Camerons at safety?
At safety, yeah. I don't know if any. Unless you could tell me.
I didn't know. Does Elias track that now?
Exactly right. It's a new stat. But
no, it's a fair point. Losing Raheem Morris is definitely, not only do you lose Raheem Morris, but losing Raheem Morris and Aaron Donald changes your core. Just like we're talking about, you don't have Fletcher Cox on the Eagles defense anymore, and that changes you. It changes you from a talent standpoint because he was their most consistent and best interior lineman last year. And it changes your culture because he's such a leader. And obviously Raheem Morris did a great job with that defense. And they've got Chris Shula, who was there, right? They promoted Chris Shula, or did they?
Yes, he was there. Yeah, he was there. But I mean, again, you play clong's an art. Look, they have the kid Michael Hecht, who's been a great story, who's sort of like a hybrid player. But again, you lose Aaron Donald because remember the attention teams would have to pay to him. They're always getting doubled. You know, stay up at night if you're an offensive coach worrying about him, but you don't have to worry about him anymore. So this will be a fun game. It always is against the Rams. But Eagles clearly going in as we speak here in May are on paper clearly better from a talent standpoint. And obviously you've got Eagles with their coordinator changes. The Rams with their defense coordinator change, so we'll see what this looks like when they play.
Yeah, I would definitely watch for Blake Corum. I know Kyron Williams had a really good year, and he's a little bit set back, some foot thing going on with him. But even if he was 100% healthy, I just think that that's the guy to watch, because McVay, his ability to scheme and that guy's ability to stay low to the ground and get out of tackles, not explosive. You know, he's not going to catch 50 passes, 60 passes, but he can move the chains, and I expect that will continue at the NFL level with that offense. And they can be ball control with their two receivers, who are able to get you yards after the catch, get you third down. As long as Stafford's healthy, I think they're going to be a pretty competitive team, the Rams. You're right. You're right. Talent for talent, not with the Eagles, but they get the most. Their coaching staff gets the most out of that talent, so they're always difficult.
He's a great coach. Sean McVay is one of the top 3 coaches. And then you move on. You go back to the AFC in Week 13 at the Ravens. Obviously, on paper, this could be the game of the year. So fascinating. So fascinating.
Yeah. This is I guess what you would say the one truly elite team on the Eagles schedule. Ravens Sunday 4:25. The big change for the Ravens is defense. So they have a new defensive coordinator, and after losing McDonald, who did such a great job, and he's now the head coach at Seattle. They lose their defensive so they have a new defensive coordinator, right? Huge. And they also lost, Patrick Queen, who played well for them last year. Geno Stone, who played great for them at safety. So they got to make up for some losses there.
Yeah. So here's the big thing. Zach Gore, if you really follow the NFL, you might remember as a player, his career got cut short due to injury. He is the youngest coordinator in the National Football League. He doesn't turn 32 until next month. So look, he knows the defense. He's been there since he stopped playing. He's been assistant with the Ravens. This is a big jump for him. Pretty sharp guy. I've talked to people who know him, but there's a saying in the National Football League, you don't know till you get there. So we'll see. Todd Monken's back as their OC. But the big story is Derrick Henry. Oh, I thought they were going to get this trade done at the deadline. They were close, but I don't know why they couldn't get it done. But they wanted Derrick Henry badly at the trade deadline last year. They didn't get him. They got him now. Justice Hill will be his backup. See, it's like, here's the thing. Here's the question. Lamar Jackson should not be running as much. I get if the pocket breakdown's wrong. I get that. But they don't have to design a lot of runs for him, because now you have Henry, who has to be a volume runner. He's not going to do well with 10 carries. He needs a lot. So things are going to change here. There's no question that they're going to take out of Lamar's hands and give it to Henry, which that's why you bring Derrick Henry in. You want to run the football.
And yet Lamar has lost weight, apparently. He slimmed down. And I wonder if it is not to necessarily, when you have such a great inside runner like Derrick Henry, the temptation to want to pop those zone reads, right? And then just, take the ball and go off the edge and then dive. Lamar could get probably 20 yards like that just on defenses getting sucked in onto the RPO from Derrick Henry. So that would be something to watch. You're right. I think you've seen him run less and less as far as design runs and even scrambled. They've also upgraded their weaponry around him. Although I don't know, there's something about these Ravens wide receivers. Bateman is underperformed. Aguilar is inconsistent. Zay Flowers was really nice as a rookie, but really to me, it's like the only guys that scare me are Zay and Mark Andrews. But yet, because of Lamar, they just can score. They can light it up.
Well, didn't look good in the playoffs.
Except for the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and now Isaiah Likely, you mentioned Mark Andrews. Likely is maybe the NFL's best backup tight end. He's really good. Out of Coastal Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, he's really good. And poor Charlie Kohler, when they drafted him, because a lot of people in the league liked him out of Iowa State 2 years ago, but Likely's clearly ahead of him. They're going to be heavy 12 personnel, but with this dual backfield with Jackson and Henry, you were kind of alluding to it. I don't know how you're going to stop it. And Lamar throws a beautiful deep ball, and Bateman, if he could not get hurt, could be that guy downfield. Tez Walker, who's a 4th round receiver, is there. So we'll see what happens. But offensively, they're fascinating now, because now they have a bona fide pure runner who needs the ball a lot. So this is going to be fun to see. And defensively, we mentioned Zach Gore running a defense for the first time. Nate Wiggins, their 1st round corner. They needed it. Marlon Humphrey's getting up there. Marcus Williams still there at safety. Kyle Hamilton, who was really a creation of Mike McDonald, because Hamilton's first year was not very good. And then after that, he became an absolute stud. And he comes into his 3rd year as one of the best young safeties in the league, probably one of the best safeties in the league but we'll see if Zach Gore still does the same thing there. Matabuki got his contract extension. The D lineman is phenomenal. 3rd-round pick. What a player he's been. Roquan Smith revived his career, making a lot of money. This is Kyle Van Noy, the ageless. He came back for another year. This is a really talented defense. Odafe Owe, the former Penn State edge rusher, hasn't got quite there yet. We'll see what happens.
Right. I mean, I feel like they're waiting for him and Ojabo, who, was a great player at Michigan. Then he had the Achilles injury at his pro day, and that's
it's terrible.
Yeah. Hopefully this would be 2 years removed now. I'm sure they're hoping that he finally regains that explosion and gives them something. They're already really strong up the middle with Matabuki and Pierce. Now, the big thing from Mike McDonald, right, as it pertains to a matchup against the Eagles, was he really brought the sim pressure to that defense
100%,
like none before. Now, Zach Orr, who was the linebackers coach, as you mentioned, right? You wonder, like, does he continue that? Like, did he see how successful that was with Mike McDonald and you would think you'd want to carry that on while he adds his own fingerprints to it. But that gave teams problems. You just didn't know where he showed you one thing and came from another angle, and he had good pass rushers to be able to do it. They don't have Clowney anymore, do they? Right? He had
Carolina.
So he had a great year for them.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit, they've had some losses here on defense, but really to me is the philosophy was so sound with those sim pressures, and we'll see if that gives teams problems again.
Yeah, and look, Daffy Owe, former Jason Owe, he's good with the pressure rate, not a big sack guy.
Right.
But this is a tough matchup. And by the way, this game in Week 13 at Baltimore is a Sunday game on December 1st. CBS game at 4:25. It's fascinating. This is an unbelievable matchup. I hope both teams are healthy for this game. I cannot wait for this one. This will be great.
Yeah, and obviously, they need Rodney Stanley to really stay healthy. It's been a problem for him.
He's been hurt a lot, and he got his contract cut. They're going to have a new left tackle. Well, this will be his last year's left tackle. Rosengarten, who you and I talked about for the draft, some teams thought he'd play guard.
Mm-hmm.
I had one team tell me they thought because of the short arms he'd play center. He's not. Linderbaum is their center, who's a stud. They're going to have a new left guard and a new right tackle. So we'll see how that works out for him. But again, this should be a great one.
All right, Week 14 versus the Carolina. September 8th, maybe not so much of a great one like the Ravens game.
This will not be flexed. There's no chance this game is getting flexed.
But yet another team that will have a new staff for the Eagles to face. Dave Canales now, head coach of the Carolina Panthers, going to call the plays. I loved what Dave Canales did last year with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. I'll be the first to admit, though, I think getting a head coaching job kind of surprised me. I think it's a little early for him, but hey, you know what? He did a great job and he's getting rewarded for it. We'll see if he can do the same thing for Bryce Young and the Panthers offense, which has some additions to it now.
Yeah, the scheme was bad with Frank Reich last year. It didn't have a lot of flexibility. It was a disaster. We know how Miles Sanders struggled badly. Jalen Brooks, I'm told, their second-round pick, will be ready for training camp in some capacity. Sanders are locked into that $6 million. That's why they didn't cut him, and Chuba Hubbard's there. So they'll be able to run it. Bryce Young struggled, but he's a pretty sharp kid. This is a pretty good scheme. It's a West Coast offense, as you mentioned. Canales did a great job with Geno Smith. But if that's not enough, I mean, Geno, that was incredible. And you mentioned with Mayfield. So they had a bad receiver core last season, but it's much better now in terms of talent. Deontay Johnson comes over in the trade. Xavier Legette, one big year at South Carolina, great Senior Bowl week. Jonathan Mingo, second rounder last year. Thielen was phenomenal in the slot. Terrace Marshall is talented. A former second round pick, hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
But you just need to be a backup. This is a much better group. Jatavian Sanders, the fourth round tight end, is a hybrid out of Texas, who's pretty athletic. Offensive line wise, are not great, but they're better. They're better at guard. They've two new players. Damian Lewis comes over from Seattle. Dan Morgan knew him. Their GM, Robert Hunt, is really good at guard. Austin Corbett is finally healthy, coming back from the ACL injury. Moulton's really good at right tackle. Iguanu did not play well. He's actually not been good at all.
Yeah.
Left tackle. He's got to get the job done. So we'll see. Avero's back as we go to defense. Gio Avero's back on defense. He's phenomenal. Really good young defensive coordinator. Just they're running a 34 front. He's a Vic Fangio disciple. They know what's coming here. They know what it is. DJ Wanham and Kleiner, who you mentioned, are their edge rushers. Derek Brown is terrific. Got his contract extension. Good secondary. Jordan Fuller comes over from the Rams. J.C. Horn, if he could just stay healthy, would be a stud. They have a good second. This is a really well coached defense. They'll be stingy. We'll see if they could score. That's the problem for them. I don't know how much they're going to score, but they'll play good defense.
Josie Jewell at linebacker. Yeah,
right.
yeah. You know what? They're an improved team. Listen, they've certainly upgraded. I find it fascinating, by the way. Here's a wide receiver's name to watch. It's fascinating that he wound up on the Panthers. Jalen Coker, one of their rookie free agents out of Holy Cross, who set records there. And it's fascinating. Andrew DeCecco did an interview with him on Draft Dreams on our platform. This guy's biggest advocate is Steve Smith, former Panthers, all-pro wide receiver. So it's kind of interesting that he landed on the Panthers there. But they trade for Deontay Johnson. They get him from Pittsburgh. They draft Xavier Legette in the first round, which I don't understand why they traded into the last spot to get him in a wide receiver, but nonetheless, they get him. Adam Thielen on the inside. Look, I think this is all about Ike Ekwonu. You mentioned if he can't play left tackle, if he continues to struggle, how does Bryce Young get better, right? If whatever reason that Dave Canales has the magic touch for this offense, you can see it's got some components. Jonathan Brooks, he could be their starting running back this year. Jatavian Sanders, the tight end they picked in the 4th round, the guy who can stretch the field. Deontay Johnson, if his head is on right, is a very good route runner and wide receiver. And if you can put him and Adam Thielen as a slot on the same field and they're both playing well, then hey, all of a sudden Bryce Young's got some options here. But again, he's got to be protected. And the Eagles feast off teams usually that don't have good offensive lines and don't have good tackles.
One more thing, we'll see if he makes it. It'll be hard for him to make it. Rashad Penny's there, who the coaches didn't want. I mean, they did all they could not to play him, and it didn't work. He didn't have a good training camp, amongst other things, so it didn't work out for him. But he's got another shot under Dan Morgan, their GM. The two were together in Seattle. Bunch of ex-Seattle players. They got like 6 or 7 former Seattle Seahawks on the roster. But we'll see. But yeah, as you said, it'll be way more competitive. The Eagles are obviously the better team, but hopefully this will be a competitive game. And Carolina, well, good luck to them. They'll be better. They've got an owner who has not had a lot of success on the field.
Yeah, Dave Canales better get off to a decent start. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen to him? All right, we got one more team left. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into that, we're going to pause to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic. I'm sorry. We're going to pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You will get a great deal.
And by the way, go to SkyMotorCars.com, wherever you are in the country. They will ship you a car. You see it on the website. They will ship it. And they are the choice of a lot of professional athletes. A lot of athletes go there. And by the way, yes, they sell a lot of high-end cars. They sell cheaper cars. Whatever you want, they can get it. They do a great job. In fact, my wife and I we got 2 cars for them 3 or 4 years ago.
There you go. All right. Sky Motor Cars. Love them. All right. Let's finish it off here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that underwent some major personnel changes this offseason. I love almost every single one of their additions, except for the ones at the most important position. Which is Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. They did bring in Arthur Smith, the former Falcons coach, to be their offensive coordinator. So you know that they're going to want to run the ball. But hey, you know what? You want to run the ball? What do? Well, then you draft offensive linemen and you get back to playing Steelers football. You draft Troy Fautanu, first round, left tackle. You draft the center out of West Virginia, who I loved. A lot of personnel guys love this guy, Zach Frazier. He should start for them at center. Even Mason McCormick, the guard that they picked in the 4th round. I wouldn't surprise if he could figure out a way to get on the field. But this offensive line, compared to where it was 2 years ago, Adam, with Fautanu, Sayamalu, Frazier, last year's number 1 pick, Broderick Jones. Listen, if Russell Wilson can't complete passes, or if Justin Fields, it won't be because they're getting chased by pass rushers left and right. This is a good O-line.
Yeah, they have 5 new starters over the last 2 seasons. Fautanu, as you mentioned, will be the left tackle. Isaac Semala was the highest graded offensive lineman last season. James Daniels who'll be the right guard, who would have been their center if they didn't draft Frazier, as I understand. And they're going to move. Actually, no, I think they're going to move. I think what they're going to do is Fatano is probably going to play right tackle. They want him. Broderick Jones who played right. I believe that he's going to play left. That's at least their goal. And Dan Moore, who they didn't want to start, he'll be their top backup tackle. Former Eagle Nate Herbig is there. In fact, they have both Herbigs. We'll get to their defense in a second. The only area where they're kind of shaky, George Pickens had a very good season last year, but because of the trade for Deontay Johnson, they did draft Roman Wilson, who's a rookie, but they don't have a lot of talent behind those guys. Quez Watkins, obviously former Eagle, who could run, but he's very limited. Calvin Austin, unfortunately, has done next to nothing. Van Jefferson has flashed a little bit with the Rams, but they gave up on him. It's funny. Arthur Smith gets his guys, Scotty Miller, Van Jefferson, who played for him. We'll see, but and then tight ends are Frymuth and Darnell Washington, who's really gifted. They're going to play a ton of 12 personnel. You know what you're getting. They want to run the ball anyway. Even with Arthur Smith, they're going to run it. Now they're going to really run it with Harris and Jalen Warren, who's one of the best backup running backs in the NFL, and Cordell Patterson, who will be their kickoff returner, punt returner, jack of all trades, and obviously Arthur Smith, another guy. But they signed him to be a returner with the new kickoff rule. They're going to be formidable. And look, Russell Wilson's better than what they had. But Russell Wilson has a shelf life, man. It eventually falls apart for him. He's not the same player. The last good year he had was in 2020. We'll see, but they obviously think he's an upgrade over what they had before.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you can question, I think, like if you gave Kenny Pickett this offensive line and these weapons, like could he have been at least developing better than? But obviously they went out and got Russell Wilson, and I gotta be honest with you, and I'm willing to be wrong and fall and take the sword if I'm wrong. I know what the stats say about Russell Wilson being improved last year. It was like 22 touchdowns, 7 or something like, it wasn't bad. It looked good after that really horrific start that they got off to defensively. But I watched like 3 or 4 Denver games. I mean, they did not want him throwing the ball on first or second or even third and short. It was only like third and long, and then he would complete a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 7. And that would make his completion percentage look good. He would run around every once in a while and throw it up to their very good receiver, Cortland Sutton. Yeah. So it made it almost felt like Carson Wentz's year in Indianapolis, where everybody's like, hey, the numbers look pretty good. But then you're like, I don't know if he's still the guy.
Well, Wentz actually played pretty well.
He did. That's true. But again, he went to the Washington.
The leadership issue
was awful. Yeah, I just don't know that Russell Wilson is the answer here. I wouldn't be surprised if they got Justin Fields on the field midway through the year. We'll see.
Hey,
kind of feels like the old Steelers team that they built the O-line and the weapons and they had Cordell Stewart, right? And he got him as far as they could, but then they got Roethlisberger. So maybe they're building it and waiting for their next Roethlisberger. But I don't know. I feel bad for this team because I think they're like a pretty good quarterback away from being real competitive, but they're in one of the toughest divisions in sports.
100%. Let's get to, I totally agree with you. Let's get to the defense. Really not much to add. That's really what it is the quarterback situation is going to hold them back from winning a Super Bowl. Until they get that guy, they're not getting there. But their roster's really good. Defensively, they run an old school 34 defense. They're going to they play a high percentage of man coverage compared to the other teams. Terrell Austin, who's been around a long time in the NFL, remember him from the Lions as a D coordinator. He's their D coordinator there. They have a great pass rush. With obviously with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and I'll tell you what, Nick Herbig, Nate's younger brother, is phenomenal. He had a great training camp. He's really they got that one right, and they've got Kyron Johnson, former Eagle draftee, is there, but he's more of a special teams player. But obviously their defense took a hit when Watt got hurt. But Nick Herbig is a player, man. This is his second year, but he had a good rookie season. On the back end, Joey Porter Jr. is terrific. They traded for Dante Jackson, who'll be the other corner.
Good player.
Yeah, he is. He's on a final year of his deal. And then, as I understand it, they're trying to figure out what the nickel situation is. They're working through that. They're really like a kid named, he won't be nickel, but Corey Trice was a corner who had a great offseason last year as a rookie, 7th rounder of Purdue. He tore his ACL in training camp or he got hurt in August. I forget whether it was a game or preseason, but what I'm told was he was absolutely, not only is he going to make the team, he would dress. They're like, oh, we got this one right, and then he got hurt. But he's doing well in his rehab, as I understand it. So safety, they're good. Mika got hurt last season. They like Deshaun Elliott. DeMonte KZ's back, the third safety. So this is a good team. You mentioned earlier, Patrick Queen comes over. They're stocked at inside linebacker. Peyton Wilson will play inside with Landon Robertson, Patrick Queen, and Cole Holcomb. This is going to be a tough game in Week 15 at home in Philly, December 15th, 4:25 game on Fox, by the way, not CBS. This is another one. Can't wait for this game. This is a pretty even game, but clearly the Eagles are better quarterback. That could be the difference in this game.
100%. These are definitely this is the pre-Roethlisberger Steelers. Run the ball, play really good defense, and hope you just get enough plays to be competitive. And bam, all of a sudden you got 10 or 11 wins. So we'll see. It'll be tough, but I don't count Mike Tomlin and the Steelers out. And Eagles Steelers is always a fun one. So that's the schedule. I think we've gone inside about as well as anybody could. We've examined the matchups, the coaching changes, the trends, everything you need to know about who the Eagles will be facing in 2024. Next podcast, we'll get into the OTAs and share all the intel and find out what we're learning. And as we get deeper into the summer, pretty soon, training camp will be here before you know it. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in the Eagles Intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.